The drops of alien rain hammered against the hull of the scout ship as it descended through Xerath-9's dense atmosphere. A thick green haze clung to the planet like a living shroud, and the sensors barely pierced the jungle canopy below. Captain Elias Kane adjusted his harness, eyes scanning the dense foliage through the cockpit glass. He had faced dangerous terrain on Earth, yes, but nothing like this. The jungle exuded a silent hostility, every shadow a potential threat. The other species' forces had already made their attempts. The Kryvac soldiers, with their heavy exoskeleton armor, had vanished within hours. The Tharlek mercenaries, famed for their hunting prowess, had left only shredded armor and broken weapons. Kane had read their reports carefully. Everyone had fallen prey to the predator they called Xerath. Nearly invisible, monstrously cunning, and rumored to anticipate intruders' every move, it was a creature that had turned Xerath-9 into a tomb for the galaxy's bravest. Elias exhaled slowly, centering himself. Unlike the aliens, he had no reliance on superior technology or brute strength. His advantage was instinct, honed through years in Earth's jungles, tracking predators and surviving where others had failed. That experience, laughable to some of the alien onlookers, was now his lifeline. He checked his pack, a plasma sidearm, a few grenades, and a set of simple but sturdy tools for survival. No excessive gadgets. Earth's jungles had taught him simplicity often outmatched complexity. The landing was rough, the ship shuddering as it pierced the canopy, but Kane guided it through the massive hanging vines, careful to avoid the predatory plants whose grasp could crush a man in seconds. He landed in a clearing, a patch of muted sunlight breaking through the green gloom, and stepped out, boots sinking into the mossy earth. The smell was sharp and alien, yet oddly familiar, reminding him of rain-soaked forests back home. Alien soldiers were already gathered at the perimeter, their chatter a mix of arrogance and fear. Kane observed them quietly. All male, as had been standard in this deployment, their physiques a mixture of lean hunters and heavily armored fighters. They dismissed him instantly. Primitive human, one sneered in a guttural voice. "You'll last an hour at most." Elias allowed a faint smirk. Words were meaningless in the jungle. Action alone mattered. He crouched, letting his eyes trace the faint rustling in the undergrowth, the subtle breaks in the canopy, the shadows that moved without wind. His senses were sharpened to the rhythm of this alien world. Every predator left a pattern, and every hunter could be studied, understood, and ultimately outmaneuvered. Hours passed. The aliens ventured in, confident in their armor and weapons. Kane watched from a distance as first the Kryvac soldiers fell into shallow pits camouflaged with native foliage, their heavy armor making it impossible to escape. Then came the Tharlek mercenaries, whose enhanced vision betrayed them. They walked into ambush after ambush, their advanced rifles doing nothing against an enemy that didn't need to fight face-to-face. Kane noted it all, making mental maps of the predator's hunting style. Night fell, and the jungle seemed to come alive with unseen eyes and unspoken threats. Kane built a minimal shelter using the massive leaves overhead, careful to leave no trace of his presence. The alien soldiers were either gone or hiding, sending faint pulses through comms in panic. He allowed himself a moment to rest, but never fully closed his eyes. Xerath was out there, and patience was part of its deadly game. A rustle in the underbrush drew his attention. He froze, every muscle taut, heart steady. Not all threats were immediate. Some were tests, probing the weak or distracted. Kane remembered Earth lessons. A predator that tests is also predictable. He crouched lower, letting the night noises envelop him, counting footsteps and breathing patterns in his mind. Xerath might strike, but Kane was already several moves ahead. By dawn, the jungle was quiet but heavy with tension. The aliens had lost all confidence, their bravado replaced with dread. Kane moved out, stepping lightly over fallen vines and shallow streams, his senses alert to every shadow, every unnatural movement. Unlike the others, he did not carry the weight of arrogance, only observation, strategy, and patience. The predator had yet to see him, and for the first time in many months, a human might outlast Xerath 9's deadliest resident. A glimmer of sunlight caught on a wet leaf, and Kane's eyes tracked the faint reflection, noting the path ahead. He smiled faintly. This was no longer a test of firepower or alien tech. It was a game of wits and instinct. And Elias Kane had been trained for this from the forests of Earth to the far reaches of space. He took a careful step forward, entering deeper into the heart of Xerath 9, where shadows moved and nothing was as it seemed. The jungle swallowed him. The jungle thickened as Elias Kane moved deeper, every step measured, every breath cautious. The canopy above twisted into an almost unbroken roof of green, letting only slivers of alien sunlight pierce the gloom. He could hear the subtle creaks of the colossal trees, the drip of moisture from their leaves, and the faintest whispers of movement in the underbrush. Somewhere in that living labyrinth lurked Xerath, a predator whose reputation had reduced the galaxy's finest warriors to nothing. Alien soldiers had attempted to follow his path, but Kane had ensured the trail was misleading. Footprints led one way, while he slipped silently in another. He employed Earth jungle tactics, broken twigs tossed in false directions, leaves subtly displaced to mimic human movement, and faint trails of scent designed to confuse even the most advanced alien olfactory sensors. He knew Xerath relied not on raw vision alone, but on the subtler signals that revealed prey. A sudden rustle froze him mid-step. Kane crouched behind a massive root, muscles coiled, senses alert. The predator emerged almost silently, a monstrous silhouette, multi-limbed and camouflaged so well that it seemed to be woven from the foliage itself. Its glowing bioluminescent eyes flickered once, scanning the jungle floor, then vanished. Kane exhaled slowly. Observation was key. Confrontation would be fatal if approached recklessly. Hours passed. Kane allowed the predator to make the first move. He studied its pattern. It moved in deliberate arcs, avoiding obvious traps but sniffing the air for anomalies. The alien soldiers who had gone before had fallen to the same pattern, charging into sight lines, relying on brute force and technology rather than patience. Kane's advantage was his understanding of predator psychology, a skill honed over years in Earth's jungles. He set small, almost invisible decoys. Twigs snapped to resemble human footsteps, drops of blood-like sap leading away from his actual path, even sounds mimicked with careful leaf manipulation. Every trap was meant not to harm Xerath, but to confuse it, to train it into expecting patterns that didn't exist. The predator, intelligent as it was, began to hesitate. For the first time, it seemed unsure. Kane noted the pause, storing it for later. Night descended, thick and suffocating. The alien soldiers, now a fading memory in Kane's mind, had failed utterly, leaving only their abandoned weapons behind. He navigated by the faint luminescence of native flora, each step deliberate. He paused at a stream, crouching low to drink, while listening to the subtle vibrations around him. The jungle was alive with hidden threats, yet Kane's focus never wavered. Xerath moved close. He could feel the predator's presence in the subtle changes of air pressure and scent. Suddenly, a shadow flickered at the edge of his vision. Kane froze, heart steady, every muscle ready. The predator had found his decoy trail. It pounced, but not at him directly. Kane had anticipated this, swinging from a hanging vine to land silently behind a cluster of trees. The predator's momentum carried it past him, a perfect misdirection. Kane barely allowed himself a smile. The first real advantage had been taken. Hours turned into tense, measured movement. Kane employed further Earth-inspired tactics, using reflective surfaces to redirect bioluminescent signals, masking heat signatures with mud and wet foliage, and climbing higher into the canopy where the predator's massive limbs could not follow. He observed it from above, noting its frustration and adaptability. The alien soldiers could never have done this. They lacked patience, subtlety, and the instinctive connection to terrain that humans had evolved over millennia. By dawn, the predator's hunt had become a dance of wits. Kane led it through misleading trails, through streams and shallow ravines, exploiting its hunting logic against itself. He marveled at the predator's intelligence even as he avoided it, respect mingled with survival instinct. This was no mindless beast. Every move it made was calculated, every hesitation intentional. He realized that to survive, he would need not only his Earth skills but an intuitive understanding of an alien mind. Then a sudden change. The jungle went unnaturally silent, even the drip of water seeming to pause. Kane froze, every sense sharpened. The predator had stopped moving. He scanned the surrounding foliage, noting subtle shifts in light and shadow. Then he understood. It was circling, aware of his position yet uncertain how to approach. Kane smiled faintly, recalling lessons from Earth's jungles. Predators could be trapped, but only if one anticipated their anticipation. He moved cautiously toward a narrow ravine, vines hanging like natural snares. The predator followed, cautiously, its massive form weaving between trees with uncanny stealth. Kane set a simple trap, a hanging branch positioned to snap under weight, a net-like tangle of vines ready to momentarily ensnare. He did not intend to kill the creature. His goal was survival, proving that a human mind could outthink the deadliest hunter in the galaxy. As he waited, the predator lunged. The trap triggered perfectly, sending Xerath tumbling into a tangle of vines. It roared, a sound that reverberated through the jungle, and Kane remained perfectly still, letting the moment pass without movement. When the predator freed itself, it hesitated, observing him differently. The balance had shifted. Kane's patience, cunning, and human instincts had earned a grudging respect from a creature that had ended countless lives before. He paused, catching his breath, eyes scanning the surrounding jungle. Other alien soldiers would have long been dead. Kane alone had survived using skill and intellect. The predator circled once more, then disappeared into the foliage, leaving him with a fragile yet powerful advantage. The first challenge had been survived, but the true test, reaching the heart of Xerath 9 and claiming the energy crystal, still lay ahead. Kane moved forward, stepping lightly over moss and vines, every motion precise. He carried no arrogance, only awareness, only the calm certainty that humans, armed with instinct and ingenuity, could achieve what even the galaxy's strongest had failed to do. He entered deeper into Xerath 9, the predator's presence looming, the jungle alive with unseen eyes, and the first glimmers of hope for a human triumph shining faintly ahead. Dawn broke over Xerath 9, a pale green light filtering through the dense canopy. Elias Kane crouched atop a fallen tree, scanning the jungle floor below. The predator was out there, Xerath, patient, relentless, and intelligent beyond any Earth species he had ever faced. Kane's muscles ached from the previous night's maneuvers, but adrenaline sharpened every sense. He knew the final confrontation was near. This was the moment that would determine not only survival but legend. The alien soldiers' abandoned equipment lay scattered like grave markers, a testament to hubris and over-reliance on firepower. Kane adjusted the simple tools on his belt, checking the position of his traps and decoys one last time. He did not intend to confront the predator directly. Earth had taught him that survival depended not on strength, but on anticipation, misdirection, and understanding the predator's mind. From below came a rustle, deliberate, measured. Kane froze, every nerve alert. The predator had noticed the shifting wind, the subtle reflections of light on his makeshift camouflage. It moved in arcs, circling him with a patience that would have unnerved any other hunter. Kane observed quietly, noting the pattern. Every predator has a rhythm, he reminded himself, every hunter a flaw waiting to be exploited. He descended silently from the tree, letting his weight spread across a network of vines and fallen logs. The predator's glowing eyes flickered, scanning. Kane allowed himself to be partially visible for a moment, then vanished into the shadows, a practiced dance of anticipation and evasion. He could feel the predator's awareness sharpening. This was a creature that had learned from countless failures, now encountering a prey that behaved unpredictably. Hours passed in a tense game of cat and mouse. Kane led the predator through narrow ravines, streams, and thick groves, exploiting its size and momentum. At one point, he used reflective leaves to misdirect its bioluminescent eyes, masking his actual movements. At another, he flooded a shallow river to obscure his thermal signature. The predator adjusted, learning, recalculating, yet Kane's subtle changes stayed one step ahead. Finally, Kane reached a narrow cliffside ridge, the energy crystal rumored to lie just beyond it. He paused, surveying the terrain. The predator followed cautiously, now wary, its hunting instincts betrayed by frustration. Kane set the final trap, a network of hanging vines anchored to falling rocks and weighted logs. He did not intend to kill Xerath, only to immobilize it long enough to move past. His plan depended entirely on timing and precision. The predator attacked first, a blur of limbs and sinew. Kane rolled through the underbrush, narrowly avoiding the powerful strikes. He triggered the first snare, and a massive log fell, narrowly missing the predator, but cutting off its escape. Xerath roared, a sound that shook the jungle and sent birds scattering. Kane held his position, using shadows and terrain to stay hidden, forcing the predator to follow a path of his design. For a moment, Kane considered the alien soldiers, imagining how differently they would have reacted. Guns firing, charges made, traps ignored. Here, in this alien jungle, instinct and intellect were the ultimate weapons. Kane let the predator tire itself against obstacles, each misstep carefully orchestrated, each movement calculated. Sweat ran down his forehead, but his focus never wavered. Then the predator paused. Kane could hear its subtle breathing, the barely perceptible shifting of muscles under its chitin-like skin. It hesitated, trying to anticipate Kane's next move. And Kane smiled faintly. He knew this hesitation. He had studied it for hours, predicting its pattern, setting the final decoy. With a single swift motion, he triggered a trap of dangling vines, causing the predator to stumble and lose balance on the cliffside ridge. It roared again, frustrated and caught in a tangle, just long enough for Kane to slip past undetected. Breathing heavily, Kane pressed on, climbing toward the faint shimmer of the energy crystal. Every step demanded attention. One false move could draw the predator back into pursuit. But Kane moved with a human grace honed over years in forests and jungles, silent and deliberate. The predator struggled against the snare, a testament to its strength, but Kane's strategy had worked. Intelligence, adaptability, and patience had triumphed over brute power. Reaching the edge of the clearing where the crystal lay, Kane paused. Sunlight glinted off its smooth surface, casting prismatic reflections across the surrounding foliage. He exhaled, steadying himself. The predator had not given up entirely, but for the first time, it hesitated at the threshold of its hunting ground. Kane understood its respect. It had never encountered prey that anticipated and manipulated its every move. Humans were underestimated for a reason, and this moment confirmed why. He crouched beside the crystal, examining it briefly, knowing that the final stretch, claiming it and surviving the predator's renewed assault, was imminent. The jungle was alive with anticipation, shadows shifting with the subtle movement of unseen eyes. Kane's plan had worked so far, but the predator was intelligent, adaptable, and relentless. Survival required one last display of instinct, cunning, and precise execution. The jungle seemed to hold its breath as Kane prepared for the final maneuver. Every trap, every decoy, every strategy he had employed up to this moment would culminate in the next few minutes. The predator's eyes glimmered faintly in the distance, calculating, analyzing, and yet for the first time uncertain. Kane's human ingenuity had forced hesitation in the galaxy's deadliest hunter. The next move would decide everything. With careful steps, silent as falling leaves, Kane advanced toward the energy crystal. The predator shifted again, but Kane was ready. This was not a fight of strength. It was a contest of wits, patience, and adaptability. And Elias Kane, trained in Earth jungles and tested by alien terrain, was prepared to prove that humans were unlike any prey the galaxy had ever known. The energy crystal shimmered faintly in the filtered sunlight, its prismatic glow painting the jungle in surreal hues. Elias Kane crouched beside it, breathing steadily, every muscle coiled with awareness. Xerath had retreated for the moment, caught in the last snare and reconsidering its approach. Kane knew better than to underestimate the predator. It was only temporarily stalled, and one misstep could undo everything. He studied the crystal, noting its smooth, alien surface and the subtle hum of energy it emitted. This was why every species had attempted the trek through Xerath 9, why the galaxy's best soldiers had fallen. Kane's heart steadied. He had faced danger before, but this was different. Here, strategy, instinct, and patience would outweigh raw strength. Every maneuver, every decoy, every trap had led to this moment. Movement caught his eye, a shadow flickering in the underbrush. The predator had not abandoned the hunt. Kane assessed quickly, its muscles tensed, eyes glowing faintly, calculating. He allowed himself a small, dry smile. He had expected this. Drawing from Earth jungle tactics, he began subtle distractions, rolling stones to redirect attention, snapping leaves to mislead the predator's senses, and positioning himself so the dense foliage would obscure his actual movements. The predator advanced, cautious but relentless. Kane didn't flee. He maneuvered strategically, using the terrain to his advantage. Fallen logs, hanging vines, and shallow streams became extensions of his will. Each step guided the predator into zones of his design, forcing it to navigate obstacles that slowed and frustrated it. He moved with silent precision, every action deliberate, every choice calculated. Suddenly, Xerath lunged, powerful limbs snapping at the empty air where Kane had stood moments before. Kane rolled through the undergrowth, activating the final trap, a cluster of weighted logs tipped by carefully stretched vines. The predator crashed against them, snarling in frustration and pain. Kane held his ground at a safe distance, watching as the predator struggled, testing its strength against the cleverness of its prey. He crouched beside the energy crystal, touching it gently, sensing the raw power within. The predator's movements grew slower, cautious, almost deliberate. Kane understood. Xerath was intelligent enough to recognize a worthy opponent. Respect, alien as it might be, flickered in those bioluminescent eyes. Kane allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. Every human instinct, every earth-honed skill, had brought him here. The jungle seemed to exhale around him. Alien soldiers, observing from a distance, would have been stunned. Every report from their instruments had suggested failure, yet here stood a single human who had outlasted Xerath 9's deadliest predator. Kane glanced back once, noting the predator's retreat into the deeper jungle. He knew it would not strike again today. Its intelligence, combined with respect for Kane's skill, dictated patience. Securing the crystal required care. Kane wrapped it in a protective sheath, mindful of its energy pulses and the delicate balance that maintained its stability. Every movement was precise, deliberate, honed from years of survival training and interstellar missions. He felt a quiet pride. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and now their ingenuity, patience, and adaptability had been proven in the harshest environment imaginable. Kane's mind wandered briefly to the alien soldiers who had mocked him, the Kryvax and Tharlek warriors whose strength had faltered in the face of instinct and cunning. He smiled faintly, thinking of Earth's forests, where similar lessons had been learned by ancestors long before interstellar travel existed. Humans had survived not by overpowering predators, but by understanding them, anticipating them, and outthinking them. Xerath 9 had only reaffirmed that truth. The journey back to the scout ship was tense, but controlled. Kane moved with silent precision, avoiding unnecessary sounds, respecting the predator's presence while ensuring his own survival. Each step reminded him of the delicate balance between hunter and hunted, predator and prey, strength and intelligence. By the time he reached the clearing where the ship waited, the jungle seemed almost serene, as if acknowledging his victory and the balance restored. He climbed aboard, placing the crystal carefully in the storage compartment. The ship hummed to life, engines vibrating under his hands, and Kane allowed a rare moment of relief. Xerath 9 receded beneath him, its jungle vast and alive, its predator still formidable, yet unable to claim victory over a human mind honed by Earth's forests. As the ship rose into the atmosphere, Kane reflected on the events that had unfolded. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, dismissed as physically weak, technologically naive, or unprepared for alien challenges. Yet here he had proven that adaptability, patience, and ingenuity could triumph where raw strength failed. He had faced Xerath 9's deadliest predator, outsmarted it, and survived. And in doing so, he had reminded the galaxy why humans were extraordinary. Kane leaned back in his seat, eyes fixed on the receding jungle. A quiet grin touched his lips. The predator had respected him, the alien forces would rethink their assumptions, and the energy crystal was secured. The story of a human surviving where no one else had would echo across star systems. Humanity, unpredictable and ingenious, had once again claimed the impossible. The jungle below was silent now, yet alive, as if waiting for the next challenge. Kane's thoughts wandered briefly to what awaited him. Other missions, other predators, other trials, but one truth remained. The human mind, when honed and patient, could overcome even the galaxy's deadliest threats. Xerath 9 had tested him, and he had emerged victorious. The predator's eyes might still watch from the shadows, but Kane knew one thing for certain. No one had passed Xerath before, yet here he was, alive, triumphant, and carrying the proof of humanity's ingenuity into the stars.